Okay. It's working. Yes. Okay, now nobody's here because this is a different link. Okay. So now we need to share this link. Share. Okay. Now I need to share this link with the world. Hold on. Okay, Noor. Now I have to reshare the link. This is the right link. Okay. Noor, do you want to try chatting something to me? Okay. Ugh, new link. Now I have to write new link. Wait, hold on. Delete story. Like Noor. Okay. Story. Sorry, y'all. I'm going to post these new stories. Please join our first ever live stream. Okay, now we have 2 people. Can y'all write in the chat, join and introduce yourselves? I can't see the chat. No one's writing it. This is like my dream to be able to say chat. What's up, chat? I'm just posting on Instagram the link. Join our live stream because it's a new link. But I will be with you guys in a minute. This is called being an independent artist and having to do it all. Okay, we have 4 people in the chat. How are you all finding it? I love that. Okay. I'm going to start in 1 second. I'm just sharing the link out so more people can join. Okay, we're going to say, and then I don't see anyone using the chat function, but that would be so cool and helpful because then I can interact with you guys. Oh, hi, Boo Boo. Brooklyn's in the house. That makes me so happy. We're seated. Okay, LaShawn's there. I'm just sharing the link out. LaShawn, did the link work from, how did you get the link? Because I'm impressed. I'm just sharing it on Stars, and then I'm going to get started because we're going to post this. I just don't want to give people the wrong link. Delete story. Post. I feel like a grandma right now. Okay. And we're going to talk about how funny this is that I chose this day to do this exact thing. Join our live. Join our first ever live. And then, okay. So now all the people can join. I just want to, like a pro, LaShawn, like a pro. Okay, well, now the link is in the world. And then if any of y'all want to share the link, it's on the Instagrams. Okay, so I'm Issa Nakazawa, host of Stars and Stars with Issa. And this is my first ever YouTube Live, which I'm really excited about. And I did want to shout out Brianna of Bad Faith, who was my inspiration to try this, since this is season 2 of Stars and Stars with Issa. And we're really trying to activate this YouTube strategy because we're putting in a lot of effort and love into making every episode a video pod. And so we really want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to bring audience attention to this platform, which is really new for me. So I'm learning and I'm really into it and excited. And I also today got my first new adult laptop because I've always worked in independent media jobs in my 30s. And so I've always had my laptop subsidized through work. And we're entering a new phase. So I have my new 16-inch laptop right here, which I will say, y'all, is very heavy. And I didn't realize how big 16 inches is, but we're growing and we're here. And I just wanted to go over how I'm going to use this space in the future. And I really want it to be collaborative and interesting for listeners. So we can also kind of co create and refine it as we go, because I want it to be really about interacting and learning more from you all. And yeah, it's just fun, honestly, and I get to say chat, so that's mostly what it's about for me. So I thought I would actually start with some of the astrology coming up because I know it's 8 p.m. on the East Coast, and I don't know how late people are gonna stay, so I wanna cover some of the astrology that's happening for the last couple of days of October, and then some big headline astrology for November, which if you know me and you know my approach to astrology, I don't believe in using astrology to create any fear. But November, that said, November is a challenging month. So I always do it with a smile on my face, a challenging month. And I'll get into more of what I mean by that. So I want to give folks kind of like a sneak preview and heads up of November astrology since we're already at October 29th, which is so hard to imagine. So after I go into some of the headline astrology, and please feel free to ask questions in the chat as I'm going. As you've all learned from the show, if you've watched, astrology is very dense, and I'm constantly learning how to better translate some of the insider baseball language of astrology to folks who are newer in their journey so that I don't lose people. And I always say that I like to move at the speed of comprehension. So if folks are lost, it doesn't do any of us any service. So feel free to be in the chat and be like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I will slow down. So I'm going to go over that. And then I asked folks to DM me questions, and I got some really amazing questions. So I thought I would end and close with responding to some questions. And I hope that I keep getting some. And I just want to say this for the people who are listening or watching the replay, that the questions also don't have to be specific to astrology. Like, I got some really good questions about the show, and just, I mean, they are related to astrology, but they're more about my interactions with guests and interviewing. And they can also be about your personal life. Like, if you're feeling stuck in an area, or if you're feeling like you're noticing some patterns or themes and you're curious if there's something going on in the planets that might shed light on your situation, I would love to offer that. Okay, hi, there's more people joining, which is so exciting. I'm Isa again. For those of you who don't know me, I'm host of Stars and Stars with Isa, which is a weekly podcast, and we're on season 2. Shout out to SiriusXM and my amazing team at Futuro Studios, and we have my amazing producer Noor Saudi on, and I think we have probably a good deal of my family members and best friends, which I love, and hopefully some listeners. So definitely use that chat function, introduce yourself. We have folks from Brooklyn. We have, yeah, we have a lot of East Coasters. So I really, really appreciate you for logging in later. But I thought it was also kind of cozy and cool to do astrology around like 8 or 9 p.m. in this witchy fall spooky time. So I want to actually just start with today's astrology. We had some like really beautiful astrology this week, and a lot of the theme of Scorpio season, as we can all imagine, is about really going deep. And we're starting to enter those winter months in the Northern Hemisphere, where we just had this like summer, this time and period of like extroversion and connection. And now we're starting to transition into a more reflective place. And I feel like that transition can be something that is double-edged. Like, I think a lot of us feel excited to get cozy and to kind of embrace that part of ourselves that wants to go internal. And it's also difficult sometimes. And if you live on the West Coast like me in Oakland, today's 80 degrees, right? So our summer clothes are still not put away, and there's like a contradiction or a paradox of what the weather is and what our internal weather is. And so Scorpio season is kind of like still inviting, like, the world at large right now is going through a lot of grief. We're also going through big confrontations. And Scorpio is one of the archetypes like Aries of the warrior, right? So I think that's actually really apt. Like, we're seeing people organize collectively and confront what isn't working. And I really think that Scorpio and Aries are here to look at things and face them as they are and not be afraid. Because when we avoid, right, which, no shade, but the sign before Scorpio is Libra. And Libra is really the archetype of the diplomat or the harmonizer. And a lot of politicians have significant Libra placements. And a lot of people's critiques of politicians, or like the kind of, the paper thin idea of a politician, is that they say what everyone wants to hear. So it makes it really difficult to trust them because you're like, where do you stand? And then the baton gets passed to Scorpio, which is the stand on business sign. So that's kind of the season we've been in, which is like, where do you stand? And not in an unnuanced way, but I think Scorpio season is really about getting clear by going deep. And that can be uncomfortable. And also, Scorpio is a secretive sign, right? So it can be a time where your secrets are coming out, or secrets are being shared, or there's a certain intimate communication that is being prioritized. And okay, but that said, what I said was hilarious about me choosing to do my first live today is that Mercury, which is the planet of communication, I would say it's one of the planets most people know because of Mercury retrograde, but it's also how we process and engage and listen. It's not just communication writ large, but it rules our technology. And a lot of that's why with Mercury retrograde, technology kind of, there's a lot of hiccups. But Mercury moves into Sagittarius today, and every planet has a sign or multiple signs that it feels at home in. And so it functions at its highest, like, purpose, or it accesses all of its planetary duties. So if Mercury wants to communicate and move quickly, it likes to be in the signs of Virgo and Gemini. It doesn't like to be in Virgo and Gemini's opposite signs of Pisces and Sagittarius, where Mercury is now ingressing, we say in astrology, or moving into. And Sagittarius is a funny, more nonverbal sign, right? So its opposite sign, Gemini, is like the verbal sign. It's the communicator, the research. It's not really the researcher, but it's the person who is like the podcaster more so. But Sag is more like, Sag Mercury to me is like so funny. And me with my Pisces Mercury, yeah, no. Sag Mercury is pretty funny. I will say something that fascinates me is like a lot of prominent poets have Sag Mercury. And so I want you to hold that in your brain for when I answer some of the questions later, because I think that's why we need to be careful with thinking about signatures or placements in our chart as bad, because I have a lot of placements at planets in what we call detriment, or where they don't want to be, and it generates a lot of creativity. So that's why I think so many Mercury and Sages end up being poets, because the planet of communication is like trying to figure out language in new ways because it's not as intuitive. So it's funny to start doing something that I've never done before when Mercury moves into its detriment in Sagittarius. And then it also immediately made an opposition to Uranus, which is in Gemini, in its last moments of Gemini before it transits into Taurus, which is a big part of November astrology. Now, Uranus enjoys itself in Gemini. They they get along. Uranus, as a reminder for folks who don't know, is it's the great liberator. It's the planet of great awakening. It's one of the modern co-rulers of the sign Aquarius. Liberation, as we know, can be exciting and thrilling, and it can also produce a shock. And so Uranus transits shake things up. It creates kind of an eccentric, erratic, breaking open, a desire to be free, a desire to experiment, a desire to do something different, whether that's on like the smallest scale of like, I want to take a different way home, to like a big decision, like, I want to quit this job, I want to end this relationship. So it can be at any scale in astrology, right? So today, there might have been disruptive conversations. There could have also been playful conversations, or conversations that opened your mind to think in new ways. And when I'm saying these things, if you're having any experiences like that, put them in the chat, because I would love to know what's been happening for you today, because we've had this like kind of interesting roller coaster energy in our communications, but we've also had this stabilizing transit today, where Mars, which is still in Scorpio where it likes to be, because Scorpio is ruled by Mars in the traditional system, it's making a harmonious trine to Saturn in Pisces. So what that translates into is like slowing down a bit, right? Saturn is the planet of endurance and responsibility. and it really wants us to take stock and take account for the long game. Mars is the opposite. Mars is like our drives, our where we take action. It's the ruler of Aries and Scorpio. It's all about passion and it wants to win. But when they're on the same team, what's great is like take one of those goals or one of your passions and slow it all the way down and figure out what steps you need to take or what's one step you can take towards making that dream or that passion a real possibility, a real potential. So I love a Mars trine Saturn. It's really interesting too when you have synastry in astrology is when we take two individual charts and see how they interact. And when you see someone's Mars trining someone's Saturn, it's also really interesting in a romantic relationship where I have that aspect with a lot of people that I've dated. And it's like you're slow to actually, oh, my sister. Oh, I just met a filmmaker today embarking on my first film ever. Or maybe that's not my sister. Maybe that's someone named Natty. I just met a filmmaker today embarking on my first film ever. Oh, that's such an amazing example of an Uranus op Mercury moment, right? Because you met someone new and you're embarking on this new adventure. And no, it is my sister. Okay, great. For a second, I was like, maybe it's not my sister. But Natu, that's such a great example of why we should not fear outer planets like Uranus, Saturn, Pluto. They get a bad rap. People get really, really nervous. And we need to think about Uranus specifically because it's a big player in November headline astrology. And I'm seeing a lot of astrologers make Uranus out to be this really scary character in the sky, and it isn't. It can be like the example my sister's giving of having an encounter that is new for you. So she's not typically a filmmaker. She doesn't typically make films. So this is her on a new adventure in a new medium, which is also very Uranus and Gemini op Mercury and Sag, which is about new adventures and communicating your stories in new mediums. So amazing example. This is why I love the chat function and it's so fun. So please use it. And if anyone has an example of Uranus trine Saturn, no pressure, but that would be cool to hear about. Like, does anyone listening have a goal or something that they've been working towards that they're trying to put structure behind? They're trying to make a system, put a system in place in order for that dream to go because that's Mars trine Saturn. But what I was saying before I kind of responded to Natty is that Mars trine Saturn in a romantic connection can also look like the slow burn. So that's also a helpful way to think about Mars trine Saturn is we're going to build an anticipatory dance between us and we're going to enjoy the simmer and the sizzle. We're not going to immediately you know, make it happen. And that anticipation is just as enticing and exciting and thrilling as if we were to make it happen right now. So that's Mars trine Saturn. And then Sunday, we have this square between Venus and Libra and Jupiter and Cancer. So Sunday, whenever we have Jupiter squares, there's a cautionary tale of like going too big. And that can be like when you're excited about something and it's almost like you're almo it's not that you're too excited, but you're, like, getting ahead of yourself a little bit. Like, let's not get ahead of ourselves just quite yet. So, it's kinda like carried away energy on Sunday, which I do love. Like, it's just a good time, and it is in 2 water signs, so it can be potentially getting carried away emotionally and not having all of the information yet and feeling a big feeling. And so I just want to say to all of you, if anything's coming up for you, the information might be incomplete. And so how do we have these conversations in our intimate lives and our work lives and our friendships and our sibling relationships and our community where we're embracing honest, authentic communication without jumping to conclusions? That's going to be a huge challenge for the next 30 plus days as Mercury and Sag starts to backspin, meaning we're going to have a month long Mercury retrograde. And it's going to be in Sagittarius for half the time, and then it's going to move into Scorpio. So, who in the chat knows their chart? Because if you do know your chart, I want you to be thinking as I'm talking about the astrology, think about where do these signs fall in your chart? In what house? And as a just a refresher, the houses are really important in astrology, especially in horoscope astrology, because they describe the themes that the planets will be affecting, and influencing and playing out in. It's like the arena in which the planets will be playing out. So it really helps it get a lot more precise. And remember that astrologers write horoscopes from your ascendant. So I would always recommend reading horoscopes from for your rising sign. Your sun sign and your moon sign are cool as well, but just know we're writing them based on your rising sign. So hopefully that helps. It's so funny because people keep leaving and coming, so I have no idea who's leaving and who's coming, but I love that. It's my first time ever, and so far it's very fun. So I'm going to my Uranus is in Sag. Oh, interesting. So you're gonna have a conjunction between Mercury and your Uranus, which is gonna be a fun time for you in the 6th house. So the 6th house is the labor house. It's also the house associated with Virgo, but it's not only the labor house, it's the house of like daily routine, it's the house of wellness and health. So it's also really when you have 6th house activations, it's really helpful to start thinking about just your daily health and wellness routines, even down to nutrition. Virgo is all about the details. So, thinking about how to resource yourself in the mundane tasks of it all so that you can get to the business of fun and creativity. So, we're going to move really quickly into some of the November headline astrology before I answer some questions. Neptune also in Sag. Yeah, you got a lot of Sag in the 6th, which makes sense because you are very detail oriented about your work. You don't play. So some of the main things that I wanted to share about the November astrology is it starts on November 5th with this beautiful supermoon in Taurus. And it's I love the moon in Taurus because the moon exalts in Taurus. And so it just is one of those beautiful transits where there is kind of like it's going to be ruled by Venus. Now, this is where I'm going to set up something that actually then gets kind of tricky, but so Taurus is ruled by Venus, so this full moon is ruled by Venus. But Venus is going to be leaving the sweet place that it's been in, which is Libra. And Libra is Venus ruled. So it's been bestowing all of us blessings of connection and justice. And now it's going to move to where my natally is, which is in the sign of Scorpio, which is in its detriment because Scorpio is the opposite sign of Taurus. So when Venus is in Scorpio, things get really deep. And all of the Venus related qualities, our finances, our romantic desires, how we dress, how we seduce, our values, are put under Scorpio's intense gaze. And Scorpio is very probing, it's an investigator. It wants all or nothing. It wants total devotion. It wants the truth. So it's a really great time all month long to really ask yourself what your values are, to really do that deeper reflective work, even if you're a Sag sun or a Gemini sun, or you're someone who doesn't typically take deeper inventory of your values and what you're looking for, I think you should just embrace this month ahead, the next 30 days to do this work because it's going to be, I like to think of transits as what are the conditions that are available in the cosmos right now and what are they making available for all of us. And this is where free will comes in. It's like these are the available conditions and it's up to us whether we want to play with them or whether we want to be kind of led through them and have to deal with it without much participation. So I think astrology can be a really helpful way to participate. And it takes back some of the agency where sometimes when we don't know what's going on, we're just going to have to deal with it, which is some people's preference, and I totally respect that. So I want you to be thinking as Venus enters Scorpio about taking inventory of your finances, taking inventory of what's working and not working in your relationship, since Venus is a planet that rules connection in our relationship. So if you're coupled, if you're single, if you're poly, if you're whatever you are, there's always questions to be asked. And there's questions you can ask yourself, there's questions you can ask together with your partners. And I think it's a really good time to ask those questions. And because there's going to be a Mercury retrograde, it is, it is a season, especially if you're a Gemini rising or if you're a Taurus rising, a Scorpio rising, or a Sag rising. You might be having conversations or run ins with exes, or you might just be reviewing past relationship patterns and trying to sort through what they mean, what you want to take, what you want to leave behind, which is also very scorpionic. Like Scorpio is pruning, transmuting. It's always thinking about how to shed its skin. So, this full moon in Taurus, though it's perceptive and sweet and lush and kind of like the empress in her garden, harvesting something, bringing wherever Taurus sits in your chart to a beautiful culmination. It's also it's also being ruled by this underworld sign that wants you to get to the bottom and get to the truth. So there's other things that are happening with it where it's making Jupiter in Cancer will be making a supportive trine to Pisces. So there's going to be like whatever in your life is going to be feeling at odds or sticky. Yeah, LaShawn, I was gonna ask you about that because Leo and Aquarius rising, Taurus and Scorpio are all fixed rising signs. So we're gonna be feeling November astrology very, very strongly since a lot of the oppositions are gonna be in other fixed signs like Scorpio and Taurus, which for you activate your fourth and 10th. So I was gonna ask if there's anything, yeah, family related or questions of place and belonging, and also big questions about your public facing life and your career and what you want to be known for, how you want to show up in the world, how you want to contribute, if any of those things are coming up, because this November 5th full moon for all Leo risings, there could be news coming in around work, career news, certain invitations that feel exciting and moving in the direction of where you want to go. And Leo risings have been having a major shakeup in their career and public facing roles. So, as so just to like pick up on a thread that I was saying earlier, Uranus, this kind of liberating planet, this great awakener planet, has been making a real sneak preview in this sign of Gemini, where it will start to be for 8 years in April of 2026. But it's moving back into Taurus, where it's been for the last nearly 8 years. So wherever Taurus has been in your chart, wherever Taurus is in your chart, that has been kind of electrocuted for the last 8 years, and it's been which sounds I'm saying it so sweetly, but for me, it's my ascendant. So it's been couldn't be more literal that during my Uranus transit on my ascendant, I became a public astrologer because Uranus is going to shake out any falsehood around, your ascendant is how you present, how you move through the world. And so when you have a Uranus conjunct ascendant transit, it's often asking you to step into the world more authentically. And that sounds cute, but it's a whole journey, and it requires you getting very, very honest about who you are, and that work never ends, but we go through these initiatory periods where we take real risks. Let's see what LaShawn's saying. Last week we had a restructure at work and my team got oh wow. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like good news though. That I originally see. Okay, the chat, I hope you're reading the chat because these are phenomenal examples of Uranus at play where things are happening in circuitous, roundabout ways, nonlinear ways that almost call back to something that originally you thought was going to happen one way and it didn't. So there's going to be a lot of that in November of like a conversation you had about two conversations ago. So I think my advice always with retrogrades is find the humor, which I know does not work for everybody, but with Gemini and Sag, no signs are funnier. And no signs use humor to get through the hard things like Sag and Gemini. So we should all take a page directly from those signs of how to deal with November astrology. I know not everything there's not laughter isn't a balm for everything, but I do think when it's the small things, I mean, eat shit, even the big things. I feel like finding the humor in it and the levity and finding evidence of moments when things went all the way left and you not only survived, but you thrived. And maybe it takes time. Again, this Mars trine Saturn, Jupiter trine Saturn, all the remediation that Saturn, Daddy Saturn is offering us right now is that things take time. But that can be a beautiful thing, right? That can be like a helpful, supportive um fact of life that we have more time than sometimes we think, which is why I was saying during Mercury retrograde, it's really helpful to, if we can, which we can't always as an Aries moon, I understand. I was just watching the Angie Martinez interview with Cardi B, who's my other Aries moon, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so Aries moon. But when we can speak after reflecting, it's, that's growth. Because sometimes we're just in oh, and LaShawn's an Aries moon who's joining us as well. And my sister's a Gemini moon, and y'all are similar to us, where sometimes we need to edit. We need to pause before we deliver what we're about to say so authoritatively, which we love to do. We're so convincing that it's truly scary because then we change our mind and we're like, I'm so sorry. I thought about it and I disagree with myself. And that maybe is the humor of this Mercury retrograde. I don't know. We're going to see. Yes, this Gemini moon is very fast paced. Yeah. So, Gemini and Aries moon, we get along a little too well because we're both trifling in this way. So, basically, I want you to think about where Scorpio and Taurus sit in your chart, which for my fixed risings, it's just going to be a month for us because when you're a fixed rising, you could be Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, or Aquarius. And Scorpio and Taurus are going to be lighting up one of what's known as your angular houses, which are the main structure of your life. So it's like the first house is your body, it's yourself, it's your identity, it's your vitality, it's how you present, move through the world. The seventh house is the partnership house, clients, collaborators, contracts. It's a lot. And then your fourth is home, roots, residence, family. And then the 10th is public roles, career, purpose. So if you're Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, or Taurus rising, that axis of destiny is going to be a lot's going to be happening. And by a lot, I think we should just frame it as change. And I always think of Octavia Butler saying, God is change. And if you're 38 to 42, I feel like we're in that initiatory period of learning how to approach change with a different attitude because if you don't embrace change, you can stay so stuck and then you can get super addicted to your suffering. It's this architecture of suffering that's very, very tricky and insidious because you can make these excuses for why you're staying safe and why you're not taking more risks as an adult, especially as you get older, because you have so many bills to pay and the state of the world is in flux and there's so little control that we want to get more and more and more controlling in these unconscious ways. And then pretty soon you're 50 and you're 60 and you're 70 and you didn't take the necessary risks that you should have taken to believe in yourself and actually like take a cue from Daddy Saturn and build backwards. Like what's a dream you have and how can you build it backwards and take one step and then take another step and then take another step. And I think something that I've learned as a Scorpio Aries that I've had to be really aware of is that Scorpio and all fixed signs can be too all or nothing. And so sometimes we need to take notes from a Virgo, right? Because Virgo is the sign of process. Virgo knows that you're going to refine and hone, and it's never going to be in secret. You get really good at something, you become hyper competent and excellent, and then you reveal it to the world. That's just not how life goes. You got to start a YouTube live on a Wednesday, having never done it before, and just know you're going to get better through doing it over and over again. And the other thing that I love about Virgos is that you're not just doing it over and over again, you're taking feedback, refining, and then you're getting better, right? Like, I think the thing that I've learned, and this was a question that I received that I thought was really beautiful around how my understanding of the archetypes of astrology has deepened through the guests on my show. And the immediate sign that I thought of was Virgo, because I've had so many major guests with Virgo placements. And I've deepened my relationship to the archetype of Virgo so much, because I find that the guests that have a lot of prominent Virgo, they're almost similar to Aries, where they're so obsessed with self improvement that they're so enthused, like genuinely enthused by feedback, which is so rare. Like, I feel like as a water signs, we can be so much more defensive. Like Cancer and Scorpio, we have all of this defensive architecture in our archetype to keep us supposedly safe. But we know safety is an illusion. I mean, within reason, right? There's things that we need to do to each other to keep each other safe, for sure. But it is an illusion, right? And I think Scorpios and Cancers can be all too guilty of trying to create the perfect emotional conditions to reveal themselves. So I've learned from people like Virgo to ask directly for feedback instead of fear and avoid it, because it doesn't do anything other than keep you really stuck. Girl, I use the term loving corrections. Yes. Oh my gosh, Adrian Marie Brown. Loving corrections blew my mind off my face because it was so Virgo down. I could not handle it. But yes, loving corrections. And one of my good friends is in the chat, LaShawn, is such a good example of this with Venus and Scorpio, Aries moon, but Virgo sun and Leo rising. And so I think LaShawn's a really good example of someone who knows how to be fierce, but also that humility. Like when I think of Virgo people, I just think this like humble service that's not performative. Like, that's so rare right now. I want to contribute behind the scenes, and that is meaningful to me. I don't need the credit. I don't need the big billboard. I just want to be part of something meaningful. So, Virgo, I just continue to be in awe and a student of Virgo energy because I think we really need it right now. And the way that I've transformed my life in the last 5 to 8 years has been the tiniest decisions over and over and over again. Like, how am I going to use my time today? Breaking it down to that is what changed my life. And I think where I went wrong when I was younger is thinking that life was like a movie and you make these huge decisions, and that's what precipitates the life you want, is like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm moving to Alaska. Oh my God. I just traumatized myself because that's like every dude on Hinge is like, I got in a car and it's like, stop doing that. Stop getting in cars and like moving in California. That's too much. It's too literal. But I think for me, and I can only speak for myself, what I've found, and the theme of Scorpio season is always going to be transformation. It's the archetype and sign of transformation. What we need to transform is actually taking agency over the smallest decisions. And that's actually a beautiful combination of the current astrology, because we have the South Node in Virgo, the North Node in Pisces. And so we're learning, all of us collectively are learning from the Pisces Virgo axis of and when the nodes are activated, it's not about overcorrecting one to the other. It's really about holding balance and honoring the continuum of those signs. Pisces is total surrender to the unknown. We're all in that boat right now. So many things, so many institutions, so many conventions, so many social agreements are eroding, are falling apart. And we are all in that together. We're all in that soup together right now. There are so many people I know that are going through major transformations, whether they're chosen or not. We're all in this together. Whether it's like they're literally getting rid of our food stamps, they're getting rid of all of the programs that were barely ever there to support us, which are so bare, they're not even bare minimum. Like they're below that. So I feel like now we're in this moment of the surrender not even being something we can choose. Or, I mean, we always can choose whether we want to grasp and cling or whether we want to go and trust. And that's a decision that we're going to be continuously confronted with under this astrology. But Virgo is on the other side of that continuum. And while Virgo, like Scorpio, can control too much or can get too perfectionist or can become too obsessive around form and editing, it's also so essential right now. Like, I keep thinking about how we need Virgo in discerning truth from noise or truth from propaganda. So that Virgo intelligence too is super critical at this moment. How do we create discernment on a mass scale? Like, I've been thinking a lot about like media literacy and all the things as a young person that I was educated in that I'm like, where is that at? Like, for any age. Like, where's the media literacy, the critical literacy? Because we're becoming illiterate at a mass level. I don't know why I keep thinking I'm not even on I haven't even been on Hinge in a minute, but I was telling my mom, I was trying to explain how, like, wild dating apps are and how grown men will put, like, Holden Caulfield on their profile, and they're, like, 40 years old, and I'm like, "So the last book you read was mandatory reading from 8th grade? Public school?" That is alarming, but that's the situation we're in, where the literacy rates are plummeting, and I love this Issa tangent that I'm on, but yeah, I feel like I really think about the Virgo archetype of, like, critical literacy, discernment, engaging with what we're reading. LaShawn just wrote, "I do a rant about the declining literacy rates at least once a week." That's, like, so funny because that's so core to who I'm become, like, that's one of my go-to rants. The declining literacy rates. I'm like, "Everybody, I need you to read books." Mind you, I used to be let's do book recs right now. This one's so good. Naomi Klein Doppelganger. I need Naomi Klein to be on the show because she's a Taurus sun with a Gemini stellium, and she wrote a literal book about doppelgangers, which is the archetype of Gemini, the twins. So holler at me. And then another book that you could read, Unassimilable, an Asian diasporic manifesto for the 21st century. We're just shouting books out. Write some book recs in the chat because for real, we really need to read, y'all. Me included. Next week, spoiler alert for the specials who are on here, we have Kiese Layman, who's one of my favorite authors of all time, who wrote Heavy, who has a new children's book out. And I'm so excited for that episode. You have no idea. And we talk so much about my favorite thing to talk about, which is intimacy and learning how to ask for things that are hard for us to ask for from friends, from lovers. Oh, we have someone. Yes, Isabel Allende, Paula. Beautiful. Thank you for that. Any more recs, please put them. But we have an amazing series of episodes coming out from some incredible writers. And I try and be so intentional with who I ask. Me and my producer, Nora, who's on, we're super intentional with who we ask to be on the show and how we feel those guests can reveal and create like insights and language that we all need right now. And just from their like lived lives. Like, I feel like all the people I've been interviewing, they live such authentic, true, courageous lives. And that's the inspiration that I need for myself right now to keep going. So I'm actually going to take a break from the astrology and I am going to answer some of the questions because they were really good. And I'm realizing it's already 5:47. And next week, I can also do a deeper dive into November astrology since this is the first one and it's going to actually be November. Okay, so I think I'm going to keep the questions anonymous because I didn't say whether I was going to say anyone's name. But if you're on the chat and you asked a question, you will know it based on the question. This was the first question I got and I loved it because if you've ever heard me on interviews about what got me into astrology, it was this. The question is, my baby is a Taurus. I'm a Taurus. My father is a Taurus. My grandfather was a Taurus. What does being in 4 straight generations of Taurus men mean for us as a family? Such a beautiful question, and my interest was already peaked. I was already enchanted by astrology at this point, but then I had the honor and pleasure of having, my mom and my dad piece together the birth times of our grandparents, and to varying degrees of accuracy, and I know that's a privilege. I always disclaim by saying a lot of folks, for very real, valid reasons, don't have birth times. And there is something in astrology called rectification that can help you identify closely what it could be. So if you ever need those service recommendations, please holler at me. But what I found was it was like this DNA code where there is this kind of undeniable repetition of energies throughout the generations. And I don't have like a singular answer for this question, but I think it felt really poetic, like there was like a cosmic echo happening down the line. And then I also found it interesting where there's continuity and when there's a break in continuity and when it shifts from sun sign lineages to jumping to someone's moon sign. So, for example, my mom is an Aries rising. I'm an Aries moon. Now that there's, like, more queer theory in astrology, people are contesting the moon as just the matrilineal lineages and more caregiving signatures than gendering. But as an Aries moon, my mom is an Aries rising, and now one of my nephews, Gael, is an Aries stellium with Venus and Mars in Aries. So that's an example where you see this threading of Aries energy, but the placement is jumping. And then you have, like, the fact that both of my parents are Aquarius suns, born the same year. And then you have someone like this person who's asking this question where there's a continuity amount. The men from every generation are all Taurus suns. And the first thing that came to mind was, like, there's some sort of karmic inheritance year and year that's passed through. And because Taurus is a sign that is the sustainer sign. It's the second sign in the zodiac. You hear me over and over again on the show emphasize it's not a verbal sign, it's a sensual sign. It follows the first spark of life, cardinal fire, Aries. Then we have fixed earth. We have the sustaining of the breath of life. We have the sensualist. We have the one who's really here to sustain resources. And so when I think of all of the men as Taurus suns, there's some part of me thinks there's some unfinished business, like there's some values or there's some resources that are being sustained and handed down. And it's like, what is each person in the family going to do to build on that inheritance or question that inheritance or question the values that they've inherited? So I would love this person to be in the chat because I would love to ask them if there has been closeness and continuity among the men, or if there've even been disagreements around values or departures around values. Because Venus is really values. It's not just beauty, it's not just sensuality, it's not just fashion and aesthetics. It really is how what we value. So I almost think of it like that, like each of you is being given this new chance at articulating new values for the family that you're stewarding forward to the next generation. And like, I'm so curious if it's like a refining or if it's like a more contentious than that, because it is the bull, you know, Taurus is not necessarily afraid to challenge and be challenged. Both Aries and Taurus are kind of down. I mean, I feel like Taurus, we're so interesting when we're upset because I think one of the worst traits of Taurus, and I'm a Taurus rising, is that sometimes we can really hold our anger in and then explode. And so I think Tauruses, especially Taurus suns, have to do a lot to learn how to communicate when they're frustrated in microdoses. Microdose that anger because it's super scary when it comes out and people are not prepared. So yeah, I was just thinking of karmic inheritance and this opportunity to redefine values through the generations. I would also love to know, I'm moving to another question, but I would love to know from you in the chat who is here if you have any generational heirlooms astrologically in your chart. The example I gave was Aries moving through my family lineage. Also, my mom and dad are Aquariuses. I am an Aquarius Mars. My eldest sister is an Aquarius Venus. My middle sister is a Scorpio sun in the 11th house of Aquarius. She's also a Cap rising with Saturn and Scorpio in the 11th house of Aquarius. So, you can see a lot of the familial threading through the house placements too, which again is why house placements are key. And then if you really want to get advanced and nerdy and really play in astrology where things get super lit is aspects. And even though I am so Scorpio moon, I'm Scorpio sun, Venus, Pluto. I'm so much Scorpio. But a lot of my Scorpio planets make and my Taurus planets and my Aries moon make aspects to one of Aquarius's co-rulers, Uranus, which gives me even more of a texture of Aquarius. So your aspects also, like I was just trying to explain this to Kiese, who has a Libra rising, but Pluto is on his ascendant. So it almost gives him a scorpionic influence in how he's perceived. So again, looking at aspects is really important because then you can see if you have any planetary textures that aren't showing up in your actual primary placements of your inner planets. And if you're lost, we'll keep going over it until you're not. Okay, my other question, all the questions were so good. Um this one comes from, well, I'm not going to say the name, sorry. So with placements in the 8th house, like an 8th house Venus, which my sister Nati has, should love and money be private? And I will say I saw the should, and I will answer this question. I think it's how I'm going to answer it is less if you should and more what unpacking what that placement is. So the 8th house is a hidden house. In traditional astrology, a lot of astrologers call it a dark house because it can't be seen by the ascendant. And the 8th house governs shared resources, inheritances, debts, merging, sexuality, intimacy, transformation. And it's a hidden place. It's the place where we transmute out of view. And it is a really private place to have Venus. So I think it mostly means that the chart bearer is going to be intensely private about those things. So even if they have a very extroverted chart, or they're very social, or they are someone who's a public speaker, or they're someone who isn't spooked by big crowds, they can be very strategic and private and compartmentalized about sharing anything vulnerable, anything that could be used against them, any private financial information, any information about things that are hard in their marriage or hard in their dating life, secret or anything that they would deem potentially like shameful. They will make sure no one but the ones they want to know. So the placement of the house placement of your Venus is also more about how you relate to Venus things. So it's not necessarily should or shouldn't. It's more like the likelihood is that that's what would work best for the chart bearer is to keep those things private. Now, on some armchair therapy, what I would say is for 8th house placements, I would really recommend a lot of times questioning, why do I keep these things private? Why do I compartmentalize? Is there shame? Why do I feel shame? And I'm not even saying I know the answer. These are personal questions for you to ask, but it could also be like, is there potential for transformation if I trust someone with the sensitive information who I know is going to honor it as sacred and is sharing and being vulnerable actually a portal to deeper intimacy with myself and with other people. So that would be the only thing I would say about 8th house placements is not being so comfortable in the secrecy and in the privacy and finding ways to also question that. Because again, 8th house and Scorpio placement, sometimes the self protection you think you need is actually keeping you from the intimacy that you want. And sometimes 8th house, 4th house, 12th house are unknowingly sabotaging their intimate relationships by being so cryptic and hard to reach and hard to know. Yet at the same time, they're sulking and they're feeling confusion around why they feel so disconnected from love and intimacy and connection and the things that they spend their entire life longing for and yearning for. And there is an addiction to melancholy and secrecy and almost solitude with 8th, 4th, and 12th house placements and Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer energies. So I think water sign houses and just the signs and planets themselves really need to be aware of intimacy requires the awkward but necessary work of communicating our internal truth in real time to someone. I'm thinking of Music Soul Child singing Teach Me. Music Soul Child is low key a hot mess right now as a grown ass man, but raised us 80s babies. And I think about how Teach Me was such an amazing song. Like, teach me how to love. If a man told me that, I would be like, thank you for being direct. Now we can get to the classroom of love, which it is for everybody. I'm not saying one person holds the keys to that class. We all have a curriculum of love. And that curriculum of love needs to be openly and willingly and vulnerably and painstakingly shared and expressed. And oftentimes water signs assume that if there's not some energetic, clairvoyant, psychic exchange or intuition between you and a lover, that it's not the one. And that just isn't true. I was just listening to this really amazing YouTube from the School of Life. I don't know what his name is, the British dude. And he was reminding me how recent the notion of romantic love is, like how new that premise is that we have soulmates and some people believe we only have one soulmate and you meet them mystically. And when you meet them, you just know. And in that knowing, you almost don't need to communicate anything because you're each other's lost other half. And just when he was describing all of just laying bare all of these romantic assumptions that we've inherited, and you realize how insane that sounds and how unfair that whole premise is to levy against someone you just met, and like how disappointed you're going to feel your whole life if that's the expectation. I think you can also go too far in the other direction where love becomes a protocol. And I think in the Huberman era we're in, everything's becoming too protocolized and like everything's about optimizing and the therapeutic language that has become so ubiquitous and just become so embedded in almost colloquial popular discourse that we all sound like HR representatives when we're trying to connect. That is the other side of that, where we just kill romance and it becomes a spreadsheet of comparing attachment styles and a 35 question questionnaire that you need to fill out like it's paperwork. So, okay, so we did a rant on literacy and now we did a rant on romantic love. Check, check. And now I'm going to answer one more question, then I'm going to let everyone go to bed. And then I'm going to leave some questions for next time because I wanted to keep this to like an hour and it's 6:01. Um okay, so we're going to end on this question. What is your favorite aspect in your chart? And I have a lot of favorite aspects, but I'm going to choose the hardest one, which is now one of my favorite ones. And I don't have a single tattoo, but I have thought about getting a tat of the glyphs of this one, which is so I'm a Taurus rising. Taurus is ruled by the planet Venus. And my Venus natally is, as I said, in detriment in the sign of Scorpio. And it is conjunct the underworld planet of Pluto in my 7th house of relationships. And when I first was a novice in astrology and was just looking up the significations and meaning of even one, oh, and I forgot my Venus is also retrograde. So it's retrograde in detriment in the house of love, conjunct the planet of death and rebirth. And when I read that, I was like, that can't be good. That simply can't be good. And now I love it because I think it explains why I love depth psychology, why I think I'm an astrologer, and why I love working with clients. The 7th house is also where clients are and one-to-one relationships. And my biggest joy and the thing that I love most that lights me up is like really going deep with someone, asking the big juicy questions, exploring the questions, living the questions, answering them is the most boring part of all of it to me. It's that co-discovery of meaning making that lights me up, and that's all thanks to my Venus conjunct Pluto. Like, Venus is the planet of connection and relating, and it merges with this plutonic need to go down and down and down and go into this descent to uncover and then come back up renewed and rejuvenated. And it keeps me ticking, it keeps me close to the flame. I think it's the thing that keeps me really brave and honest, and it's the signature that keeps me super nerdy about research and passionate about like this show. There's something crazy happening outside. Sorry, that's why I'm like looking like I'm thinking deeply, but I'm just making sure everyone's okay. Um, but yeah, like this show, I think when Ravina called me spiritual Nardwar, that was like the biggest compliment because Nardwar, for those who don't know, is like a niche music journalist. He's not that niche, but he's a music journalist from British Columbia who does so much research on his guests that they like joke he's like the feds. Like, who did you talk to? My middle school teacher type thing. And so when she said, "You're the spiritual Nardwar," I was like, "Yeah, that's Venus conjunct Pluto." It's like having a laser obsessive focus on the thing that you love. And if you transmute that obsession into something not harmful, but something useful, it turns into this magical curiosity that and spiritual alchemy that can be in the presence of someone with Venus conjunct Pluto. You can feel so seen and so gifted with pure presence. Like there's no distraction. There's just a focused intensity that makes you feel worthy of investigation, which is something I feel like less and less people feel right now. I feel like I don't feel that often anymore. Like, I think maybe it's our phones or it's just the culture right now to feel like people are paying half attention, not just to me, but to themselves, to their own lives, to like the conversation you're having. And so I think Pluto placements create this laser focus that we need right now where you really give somebody the gift of your full attention. And I know this sounds corny, but I feel like that can change the world. Like if we all gave each other our full attention, our full devotion, man, I just don't even know what world we would be living in. And I think with Venus conjunct Pluto, another lesson that I've learned is that where it can go really wrong is hoping that one person can fulfill you in this way that transcends what a human being can offer another human being, which is a lot. But I think Venus conjunct Pluto has taught me to be really discerning with where we aim our devotion. And sometimes we break our own heart because we expect so much from someone and we're not explicit with what we're expecting. And we're also expecting too much. And so I've learned how to distribute my intensity, how to distribute my passion, how to distribute my love, how to distribute where I want to devote that worship energy. And that has been a game changer. And I want to say a lot of that has been thanks to Esther Perel, who I think has equipped a whole generation with a new framework to understand love and relationships and the erotic, and that we need a village. We need a village to sustain one relationship, and we definitely need a village to feel fulfilled on an individual level in our relationships. So, I'll leave it there. But yeah, Venus conjunct Pluto retrograde in Scorpio as my chart ruler and my main central placement of my chart. And I would love to do a section in the future of the questions where people talk to me or ask me about what they think is the most difficult placement in their chart. And we don't put a smile on it, but we break open the assumptions of why it's difficult. And we start to see what else is possible there because there's no placement in astrology that's just doom. There's no placement in astrology that's also just the get out of jail for free card because people always want to see that Venus conjunct Jupiter, that Sun conjunct Jupiter, but that can also go left, right? Like anything good we can take for granted or we can exploit. So, anyways, this has been so wonderful. I loved this. I have no idea necessarily what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep doing it. And we're going to do this again next Wednesday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And I'm going to do the same thing where I ask questions from you all. And next week's episode is so good. KSA Layman. I can't wait to hear how folks react to it. I would love to open some space for us to have a conversation about it too. Thanks so much for tuning in. LaShawn, Natty, Noor, Susanna. I am so damn. Am I gonna cry? Oh, yeah. I mean, did we cry? I don't think we cried. I don't think you're gonna cry, but I think you are gonna laugh. And yeah, it was a really good one. No spoilers though. Um, yeah. Thank you all so much. And my only homework for you is to come back next week and think about what your favorite placement is in your chart. And I'm gonna ask you that in the chat. And I want to hear your answers. And then the week after that, we'll talk about the opposite to keep it juicy. But yes, remember Sunday, don't jump to conclusions, but have fun. Be safe, everyone, for Halloween. Get really spooky. Honor your ancestors, honor those who are no longer with us. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining. That was super fun. I don't even know what I'm about to do, but I'm going to hit end stream. Good night. Good night. Bye.